Hi, everyone. Who here has trouble writing content or let alone coming up with ideas? We all need to write great content to get our business products and services out there to our potential clients. But how many of you struggle with coming up with content ideas? Go ahead, raise your hand. It's okay. Or are you finding yourself that you just don't have enough time to write massive content like you think you should be putting out? Yeah, go ahead, raise your hand. I've been there too. What if I told you that today's guest has a content formula that is going to blow your mind and save you time? I'll share my story about seeing her speak at Social Media Marketing World and how putting her content formula into action drastically changed how I produce my content. I save time and yet I produce better content and more content. It's mind-blowing, I'm telling you. Hi, everyone. I'm Mary Fainbrandt with a LinkedIn Bakery, serving up bite-sized tips so you don't get overwhelmed. Today's guest is Melanie Deziel. I am so excited to have her on the show. Like I mentioned before, we met at Social Media Marketing World. I've seen her speak twice. Now, that's saying a lot for me because I don't see a lot of speakers when I go. I go for the networking. But her session was on fire. She's such a dynamic presenter, and her tips are things that you can like walk away and implement right away. That is the best kind of presentation, in my opinion. So she is a speaker, a trainer, and author of the Content Fuel Framework, how to generate unlimited story ideas. And she's a mom, probably the hardest job she's ever had. Hey guys, before we get started, let me know if you're watching the replay. You guys know the drill. Hashtag replay. Put that in the comments and ask your questions. And Melanie and I promise that we're going to go back, like tomorrow, later today, and see if any of you are watching the replay and had some questions. So Melanie's going to share, you guys know what we do here on Bite Size Tips, 3 tips. We keep it short and sweet, 30 minutes, okay? She's going to talk about how to find the intersection of consistency and quality, how to create process-focused content. Now, I'm really interested to learn more about that. And then how to experiment with new content formats. And I think that we all probably want to try new formats now and then, and we're scared to. But I think there's something to be said about that. And I can't wait to hear what her tips are for that. So you guys, let's go ahead. Let's welcome Melanie to the show.
Hi. Good to see you again.
I know. So how are you doing today?
We're doing okay. It's a warm and kind of rainy day. We made it through the hurricane that kind of came through. So, we're on the other side. So I hope everyone who's listening, I hope you all made it through the storm if you're over with us on the East Coast team. I'm
telling you, 2020 hurricanes and just, and the explosion.
We can't get a break.
Happened, the explosion that happened yesterday. Just prayers and hugs going out to anybody who was there, anybody, if you have family there. I don't know what we can do, but I watched that and I started crying. I was like, this can't be real, right?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, bye-bye 2020. Bring 2021 on,
we need
right?
A new start.
But hey, we're getting through it day by day with friends and colleagues and families, and we're being creative. And talking about being creative, Melanie, let's talk. We're going to be talking about content. But before we jump into that, why don't you share with the audience like how you got started and what your background is?
Yeah, so my background is actually in journalism. I started out as a journalist and I fell in love with storytelling. I love that I can go become a temporary expert on a topic and then turn around and share that information with other people. And hopefully that helps them do their jobs better, be more informed citizens, or just makes them smile, right? So what I found is that there's actually a big appetite for all those skills on the marketing side. So I've spent the last few years on my own with a company called StoryFuel that I founded. And what we do is we train marketers and creators on how to use some of those best practices and tactics from journalism to make their content more compelling, more creative, more credible. And really, it lights me up. I love this work that I get to do, to be able to take the things that I love about storytelling and content creation and share it with other people. So hopefully we're going to fulfill that mission for you guys today. And some of the tips that we'll talk about will make your job easier, will make you feel like a more creative and confident storyteller.
I love that. More creative and confident storyteller. Because stories, I've learned, probably this year, I've really learned the importance of the storytelling. And before we jump into that, we've got a bunch of people watching. I'm trying to watch all the different platforms, you guys. So like if you see me turn, I'm not ignoring you. I'm over here on LinkedIn. I've got Facebook down here. We've got Raluca. We've got John Patrick. We've got Amber. We've got Gina. Thanks you guys for tuning in. If you have any questions for Melanie, go ahead and drop them in there because she can't wait to share all this goodness with everyone, right?
Yeah, this is going to be fun.
It is. It's totally going to be fun. That's how I like my show. Fun and informative. So thanks for telling us about your background. Why don't we just jump in to tip number 1? It's called find the intersection of consistency and quality. And I think those 2 words are so important. Can you describe or share with us, what do you mean by that?
Yeah. So what I mean when I'm talking about the intersection of consistency and quality is that these are really the 2 things that most people struggle with when it comes to our content creation, right? You start a blog or you launch a YouTube channel or a LinkedIn live show. And the biggest challenge is, how do I create good content and how do I follow up and continue to deliver that consistently? So what's really important here is sometimes people get too hung up on one or the other and they sort of leave the other out. What I mean by that is maybe you make the most epic, amazing blog posts or videos or something else, but you're putting them out 1 in 1 month, 3 in another month, and your audience never knows what to expect from you. That's not great. But on the other side, if you're putting out something every single day or every single week and it's not that great, you don't want to be there either. So when I talk about finding that balance, you really have to ask yourself, what can I do that I can show up consistently and still deliver quality? And that's really how you find the sweet spot. It is much more important that you show up every other week with something of quality than showing up every week with mediocre stuff, or every 3 days with something you're proud of than every single day with something neither you or your audience care very much about. So it really comes down to asking that question, how can I show up consistently with something of quality? And that's going to help you figure out the frequency with which you can create content and maybe where you should be. So for me, I know that I'm a writer. That's sort of my first content language. I can create written content very easily. So if I needed to do something very frequently, I would gravitate toward that. It takes me a very long time to get ready for video, to set up video, to edit video. So if I need to be but if I need to be like cutting YouTube videos, that's not something I can personally do at scale frequently. So being honest with yourself about those 2 things helps you find a good balance.
I think that is so important. So we have Amber here. Amber, I know she's in San Diego. She said she struggles with consistency. And I just want to share a story to help other people. When I first started, I thought I had to post on every platform. And it didn't matter what I was posting. I was just like, I got to get my name out there. And I'd get up at 7 a.m., look for content, make some silly image. And it had nothing to do with my brand.
Yeah.
I mean, most of it didn't. I was just like, oh my gosh, I have to be everywhere all the time. Thank God I learned that that's not the right way. And I was spinning my wheels. And I've worked on creating better content and repurposing it how you taught me.
That's right.
Thank you.
Good.
So I know that Amber, you're a women's coach, a health coach, and she struggles with consistency. So let's address that. I think one thing to do is to find a day where it's like I'm doing blogs, or on Tuesdays, I'm putting out a blog. And then on Thursdays, I'm going back and commenting on it or sharing it, right? Is it helpful to have days dedicated for content?
So you want to do 2 things. You want to set up time for coming up with your content, promoting it, really put it on your calendar, like decide, just like we talked about, this is the day for writing or editing or posting or engaging in the comments. Put that time on your calendar, because if it's not there, it's not going to happen. If it's there every week, you're never going to book over it or overbook yourself. Put it on the calendar, decide when you're going to do those things. But the other thing that's really, really helpful is for you to decide when you're going to do those things in a long-term way. Some people talk about this as like a content calendar. Some people talk about it as an editorial calendar or a posting schedule. Have an idea in your mind of, where do I want to be on what days? So maybe you publish a blog post every Wednesday and a YouTube video every other Friday, and you post on Instagram Tuesdays and Thursdays. I just made that up. But decide how often you want to show up in those places and spread it out in a way that gives you a chance to do all of those things. If you're doing everything running out on the same day, you're no doubt going to be overwhelmed. You're no doubt going to forget something and feel like you can't keep up. So create a schedule for yourself, both on your calendar and in terms of when you're going to be creating and putting out that content. And what that allows you to do is to plan in advance. This is what we call batching content. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but the idea here is
I love batching content.
it's so smart. Think about it. With your laundry, when you wear one outfit, do you run over to the washing machine and run a load? No, you don't do it one off, right? Do you go shopping for just that night's meal at the grocery store? No, you do the whole week's worth of stuff in one trip or one load so that's ready for the upcoming week. So I want you to think of your content creation in the same way. How can I do a load of laundry or one big grocery trip that gets me all prepared for that week's worth of content or month's worth of content?
And I can say that, so I did this, I do it off and on. I'm trying to be more intentional. But one day I sat down and we do Tuesday tips. So every Tuesday at 9 a.m., there's a Tuesday tip. We're like at 150 or 160, I don't know. And I have a VA, right? And I was like, I got to record video. I sat down on the weekend. I did 4 video Tuesday tips, got it over to her. And I was like, July's done. Or it was June, like, done. I'm like, that felt so amazing. So my goal is to sit down, do content at a month at a time and leave space for things that come up. I don't need to post every day just to be online. I need to post with intention and have some open spaces.
The other thing that you mentioned, Tuesday tips, this is what I would call a franchise, right? Where it's just like a franchise, in, like a McDonald's or a Starbucks. They're all a little bit different, but they're pretty much the same. You know what you're going to get when you show up. Give your audience that same experience. So even for you, you don't have to tell your audience it's Tip Tuesday or Favorite Book Friday or whatever you want to call it. But at least for yourself, understand what repeatable frameworks and franchises you can create so that when you sit down to batch your content, you can sit down and say, I'm going to come up with my 4 Tuesday tips or my 5 recommended reads or whatever you need. You already know what your mission is when you sit down to create that content. If you have to sit down and say, gosh, I need a month's worth of content in the next hour and you have no idea where to start, it's going to be really difficult.
Yeah. So Pat says, heart, batch content by the month. High five. That's going to be our theme. I think in my private group, we're going to do a batch day. Like maybe we'll just do like a working session where everyone comes in and works for 2 hours and batches some content. I'm going to write that down because anybody who's watching this in my bakery group, would you come on and do a batch content, like couple hour session with me and we just work and hold each other accountable?
Besides bakery, batch, like there's some puns waiting to happen there.
I love it. So creating process focused content, what define that for me? I know it's important. I'm like, where is this going to go?
Important. It's so important. And it's a really good one, guys. So this is especially important for right now where we all are distributed. People are stuck at home still. We're in various degrees of opening and quarantine. Okay. In early March, if you look at the Google search data and other search data, certain searches for tutorial, how-to, DIY, instructions, all started to rise. Right now, people don't have access to the people, the resources, the other information that they normally need. So all the things that we used to outsource or buy, we're suddenly having to do ourselves and make. So the question to ask yourself is, what can I teach my audience or what can I help them with? Think of a specific process that they're going to have to go through. It could be fixing something, making something, deciding between various things, installing, breaking, combining, whatever that process is. Think of that verb that they have to do and then create content that guides them through it. Because my guess, and you tell me, Mary, if you're in the same boat, how many people had to give their partner a haircut or have their partner figure out how to give them a haircut, right? I mean, this is like looking up recipes because you couldn't get ingredients at the store. So you had to make a different recipe.
Or everyone started like organizing their house.
That's right.
Right. So you're cleaning, but how are you cleaning? Right. So
we were looking for instructions on how to set up work from home offices, how to entertain our kids or homeschool. I mean, goodness, there's so many things that we needed to figure out. Your audience is still figuring things out. So ask what you can teach your audience. What processes can you help them with and create that content that helps them through.
So I did that without realizing that's what it was called, because that work from home, like I did, like, here's how to look good on a Zoom call for all those people that are like, for us, Zoom is nothing, like whatever. I do a gazillion Zoom calls a day.
That's right.
But for the average person, I had friends like, Mary, I know you use Zoom. How do I do it? So I wrote up and I gave like virtual backgrounds, links to that, up it, look better than your coworker type thing. And, so that was doing process focused content. And I didn't even know what it was called.
That's right. You're welcome.
So so I'm trying to think process focused content. So that's the how-to. Basically.
Exactly. Instructions, recipes, DIY, any process your audience is going to complete. It could be a mental process, like, again, deciding or, considering, right? Or a physical process, making, installing, building, adapting, adopting, whatever that verb is. Just think of those things. What is your audience doing right now? And create content that helps them through those processes.
So Amber, who's watching, I think that this would work for her because she works with women and their health. So that starts like in your mental. So what are you thinking about? And what's your daily thoughts? So Amber, I think that you looking at process focused content might be a way to make you more consistent.
That's right. Yep.
I love it. Okay. How to experiment with new content formats. Now, that can be scary, right? The unknown. Will it work? Will people laugh at me? Will I mess up? Will it just die? So what is your advice when someone wants to start experimenting with new content formats?
So the first thing you want to think about is you have a first content language. Like I said before, I'm a writer first. That's always going to be where I'm most comfortable creating. But my audience has preferred content languages for consuming content as well. So it doesn't matter if I love writing. If all my audience cares about is podcast or video, then I could create the best blogs and articles out there and it's not going to connect with them. So those are some of the things you want to think about. Where are you most comfortable, right? What's your first content language? What do you like to create? But what does your audience like to consume? And if you see some kind of mismatch there's a couple ways you can bridge that gap. So the first thing you can think about is finding someone else who can bridge that gap. So maybe I'm great at writing. My audience wants a podcast. Maybe I could find someone who does podcast production and we could team up on that. And I'll write the outlines and we can work together on making it a podcast. The other thing you could do is find a tool that's going to help you do those things. So maybe I'm really into writing and my audience wants a podcast. I don't know if I have the skills, but I bet if I record the audio, just read my script, because that's where I'm comfortable, I can find a tool that will allow someone else to create that content, that audio, and send it back to me, right? So find a tool or a person who can help you bridge the gap. And the other thing, which we alluded to earlier, is that you can often repurpose content. So maybe my audience wants audio and I'm creating video. Well, it's pretty easy to extract the audio and upload that as a podcast. It may not be the most polished thing you've done, but it's one option, right? Extract and upload. You could do the same thing by taking a screenshot of us here. We could do a little pose and then that screenshot.
Wait a minute. Because I'm the one who, whenever we're on, okay, wait, I'm going to kind of go here. Okay, ready?
I hope you guys smile too, because this is weird otherwise.
Yeah, so whenever I'm on a Zoom call, I'm always like, you guys, every time you meet with someone, that's content. Had a great meeting today with Melanie. We talked about content. Can't wait.
Oh,
you know, I'm always like, there's so many ways to get content every day. But
that's right. So you could reformat.
Yeah, you were talking about, video, right?
Yeah.
But what I learned, I have some audience members that are hard of hearing. So they were asking for transcription. And we just started doing that this year. Like, my VA went back and put transcription on all my live videos. So now now it'll be done monthly. So I can reach that audience, because we have to remember that people learn and absorb information on different levels. Like they see it, they hear it, they do it, right? We all learn differently. So I think that to be the best business owner and to really take care of our audience, that we do need to reach out on different mediums.
And we need to make sure our content is accessible. It's a really good point you make about some folks may not be able to hear what it is that we're saying, whether that's because they're hard of hearing or because, like me, like they have a kid who's napping and they can't play a video right now, you know? So, you know, there's lots of ways we can repurpose and integrate other content formats to make our content more accessible, both from a disability standpoint, but also from the fact that people learn in different ways. And some people will absorb that information better if they see it visually or read it or hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just trying. I think Christine jumped in, Betsy and we have someone from Zurich. Well, hello from Zurich. I'm not sure how to say that name, so I'm just going to say hello, Zurich. I'm just making sure no questions over here. So these are really great tips, and it might sound overwhelming, but I really, you know, for me, learning how to use your format, your content format, and repurpose the heck out of, so this live show gets repurposed a lot. And it's good content that my audience wants. I feel like my audience does want me on video. I don't know, you guys. If you don't want me on video, send me a private message. We did have some questions that came in before the show, so I want to make sure that we have time to address those. So
let's do it.
Questions for Melanie. Ask her about connecting current events with content ideas.
Okay. So one of the things that we need to be considerate of, obviously, is there's lots of things happening in the world. So there's a couple ways you can kind of come at this question. The first would be, a lot of times we want to make timely content. So in journalism, this is most of what you read. It's the things that are happening here and now. It's important for us as brands, as organizations, to be realistic about whether we can actually return content, get it approved, and get it, you know, posted or published in some sort of realistic, timely fashion. For most of us, that's not possible, right? We have legal review, or we have someone who needs to go over it first. So it's often difficult to create timely content. So you're trying to tie into current events in a broader sense that gives you more time to create. Think about slightly bigger events. So that could be things like seasons, holidays, sports, you know, if there's a particular sporting season that's happening. That gives you a slightly bigger window to be able to create and publish that content. Whereas instead of reacting to an individual dunk of a basketball game, maybe you expand it to just that game. You have some piece that you want to get out in time for that game, or in time for that week, referencing some game that happened in between, or just in time for the NBA season, you want to roll something out that has to do with basketball. So if the specific event is a little small for you, consider ways you might be able to broaden that window for yourself so you can still create content in a timely fashion. And the other thing we just want to acknowledge here is, as we noted in the beginning of this broadcast, there are current events happening that may very well and probably should cause you to question whether now is the right time to put out a particular message. So that question, those questions you want to ask yourself if you're worried about current events and how your message is going to land is, does this need to be said right now? And does it need to be said by me? Those are two really important questions when there's like a bigger social conversation, an emergency, the pandemic, a natural disaster. Does it need to be said right now? And does it need to be said by me? If you can answer yes to both of those questions, consider putting it out. If you can't answer yes to both of those questions, pump the brakes.
But, and talking about this, so in my circle of social media people, you know, when the pandemic hit, this was a big topic. People are like, I just stop marketing. I can't put anything out. And I think that people struggle with that when something of that magnitude happens. As an entrepreneur, business owner, do you just stop? Do you just not put content out because you're trying to be mindful and considerate? Or at the same time, like, I'm a career coach as well. So like, I went into, I'm doing a 4-part series for my job seekers because I heard panic. I'm never going to get a job. You know, we're going to lose our house. How nobody's hiring. And I was like, no, people are hiring. So we did a 4-part job series. So I think that's how I reacted of how I could serve that part of my audience.
And I think in that instance, did it need to be said right then? Yes, because they were experiencing panic, right? That now is the time that they need help. And did it need to be said by you? Yes, you were qualified to be sharing that message. I think the messages that don't necessarily fit that criteria are, we can probably all think of 1 or 2 really inappropriate commercials or ads that we saw about, we're all in this together. And we're with you in this uncertain time. And like, it meant nothing because what was that brand actually doing? They weren't doing anything, right? Same thing happened with Black Lives Matter. So many organizations came out about how they stand with They stand with the movement, they support the movement, but their actions showed something very different. So that's an instance where, does it need to be said by me? The answer was probably no, because they weren't actually living those values. So those two questions, that does it need to be said now and does it need to be said by me, can keep you from making some of those gaffes.
I love that. It's such a simple pro tip, but so, I mean, we can all ask ourselves that. So if anyone's questioning, you know, what content, you know, should this go out? Not in your general content. Like I'm still posting, you know, my Tuesday tips, my shows, and some other content, but for bigger things. Okay, thank you. So the next question is, Dan asked about quality versus quantity. And we kind of covered this, but he said, some experts say you need to post multiple times a day. And then he wrote Gary V.
Well, okay. If you happen to be watching this and are Gary V, then please feel free to follow that advice. You know, I love Gary. I've worked for Brave Ventures. Yeah, I don't have any beef with Gary. However, it's important to note that most of us don't operate on the same topic to the same audience or at the same level as Gary V. He has, I believe, a 40-person team that supports the content brand of Gary V. Most of us don't have that. So if you happen to have staff with lots of free time to go and post on your behalf and engage on your behalf on all of these platforms, by all means, take advantage of that. Well, if you don't, then focus on quality.
Yeah, the other thing, Melanie, is not every platform requires or needs or deems multiple posts a day.
That's right. Yeah. We can all think right now of the person on Facebook who posts too many times a day. I'm going to give you 1 second. You're thinking of someone, you know, there's someone on your feed where you're like, my goodness, find something else to do, right? So don't be that person. On Twitter, the threshold, the feed moves much more quickly. There's a lot higher tolerance for posting multiple times a day. Same thing for Instagram, though. We've all logged on to Instagram and you find 6 posts from the same person and you're like, man, we get it. You did something. Right. Like we don't need to see that many pictures of your dog or your lunch. Right. Or something.
So I think it depends on the platform and your audience. Yeah. So I don't think quantity wins out quality any day. No. Consistency.
That's right. It comes right back to our first conversation. If you can deliver quality multiple times a day and your audience has an appetite for it, go for it by all means. Yeah.
Betsy says
people get snoozed.
Yeah, people on Facebook get snoozed by me. And Pat says, I'm creating video courses in response to what type of content do I want to create?
I think you asked that earlier, what kind of content people wanted to create. So it looks like Pat's diving into a video course. Cool.
And I have one more question. What's your opinion on posting the same content, but on multiple platforms?
So I think what happens here is sometimes we want like a secret, easy way out where we can just take the link to our blog post and just paste it on LinkedIn, paste it on Facebook, paste it on Twitter. And that exact strategy rarely works the way we want it to. We can definitely share the same content in those places, but we often need to adapt the way that we share it. So you think about what works on Instagram, we know that it's visual, right? We know that visual content, you can't just paste a link there. So what can we grab visually that's going to compel people, particular to Instagram, and how do we share it there? Then we think about LinkedIn. This needs to be told through a professional or career-oriented angle. So how do we message that in a way that says, here's why you should read this to help with your career, right? Here's 3 tips for your career. If you're going to post it on Facebook, people are in a slightly different mindset. Betsy's over there snoozing people who are posting too often. So you got to make sure you're going to pass the Betsy test and be able to have a piece of content that's not, not going to get you snoozed. It's going to be worth engaging with. So you want to cut through the noise there in a different way. On Twitter, you might be able to just post the link, but you probably should talk a little bit about what's in the article and maybe what you thought of it, why you wrote it, bring a little personality into it because it's a very human platform. You're talking directly to your audience. Your little face is next to it. It's coming from you. So be human. So I think you can definitely share the same content, but you just want to change the way you deliver it to make sure it suits the platform.
I agree. I always tell people it's human to human, right? You've got to infuse your personality. And if you're ever sharing even like an article or another post on LinkedIn, I'm like, don't just hit the share button. I need to know why you're sharing it. What was so great? Was it tip number 3? Was it tip number 5? Do you disagree with it? Share your opinion because you're going to get more engagement. And you're going to be seen more as a thought leader and not just a stalker. Share, like, I hate that.
Or just a curator, right? A robot could grab links and share them. You want to show that you're a person making choices about why you're sharing.
We're over robots. And I'm all about, infusing your personality on all the different platforms, even LinkedIn, you guys. It's H to
right.
H, human to human. So share who you are, what you believe in, what your mission is. Well, these are all really great tips. Thank you so much for all the nuggets that you shared. We're almost out of time. I'm trying to honor that this is bite-sized tips. So that's a 30-minute cutoff. So I've got one final question for you, Melanie. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Where's the first place that you're going to travel when we're all released?
Oh man, I don't even know. I can't. There's so many. The grocery store without gloves, like it doesn't take much to make me happy. I think honestly, what my first thing when things are calm is I'm gonna go find a really nice coffee shop. I'm gonna get a nice cup of coffee and I'm gonna read a book.
Oh my gosh,
That's what I want to
miss
do.
coffee shops. Yes, I
Me
want
too.
to go to a little local coffee shop, not the Starbucks coffee shop, and just like meet up with some of my social media friends, Kendra, Stephanie, Evie, Amy, all of you that might be watching or tuning in. I so need that, and I need brunch.
I've got one more bite-sized tip if people are missing the coffee shop. There's a tool called Coffeetivity. It's like coffee and productivity smooshed together. It gives you soundscapes. You can listen to the ambient sounds of a coffee shop. So if that's your vibe, if that's how you get your best work done, like brew yourself a cup of coffee, put on Coffeetivity in the background, and you're going to be like in the zone. You'll hear, espresso steaming and like ambient chatter.
Check that out. You guys, I'll find the link and I'll put it in. And finally, Melanie, where should people learn more about you? Where should they connect with you?
I put my little link down here. So storyfuel.co, that's our website. So if you want to learn more about me, you want to learn more about the book, the Content Fuel Framework, you can learn more there. Yeah, I think we all need that book. It's a good one. I mean, I'm biased, but I think it's pretty good.
I happen to really love the author, and I think she's so smart and relatable again. So I think I need that book. You guys, thank you so much for joining us. We will have a recap of this live show. And just to wrap up, I want to give a big shout out. The bite-sized tip for busy entrepreneurs, we have an official sponsor. StreamYard is now our official sponsor. So a shout out to StreamYard. That is what we're using to go live. It is by far the easiest platform to go live. So if you're looking to start live streaming, let me know. I'm going to drop some links after the show and share those links with you. So thank you, StreamYard. High five for signing on to be a sponsor for us. And also, you guys, go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can just binge watch, because I know that's what you're done with Netflix, right? We're all like, we've watched everything. So just go to my YouTube channel and just binge watch all my 30-minute shows, and you're going to get tons of tips to help you scale and grow your business. And finally, we just want to help everybody out during these trying times. And so I want to do something special for those that are watching live. If you use my discount code LinkedIn Live, all one word, you're going to get a huge discount on a strategy session with me. So that's good through the end of the month. I'm going to put that link in there. And you guys, thank you so much for joining us. We'll go back, make sure we answer any other questions. Melanie, high five. I know you got a little 1-year-old coming, so thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate you. And you guys, we will see you at the next show is with Gary Ware, playful presentation. It's called Ditch the Script. Take care.